Chapter 7. The Monster Beneath the Scab. Amarok's claws scraped against the blood seal. The multi-layered spell circle shimmered violently. No. Emiya stepped toward him. You cannot mean to. I do. Amarok dug his claws deeper. The innermost ring resisted. Blood-red runes flashed. The wolf growled and tore another groove into the seal. A crack spread across the circle. Something seeped through. Emotion, hatred, pain, grief, and rage. The negative energy poured out in wisps of black smoke, tinged crimson. Emiya staggered backward. The temperature climbed. The leaking power slithered across the floor toward Jake's spirit. No! Emiya shouted. Amarok ignored him. He can't win as he is. The black smoke wrapped around Jake. His unconscious spirit twitched. Memories surfaced. Claire's death at the hands of her brother. His mother's last moments sacrificing herself to stop Inyana. His father's disappearance. Ulquiorra being killed by Ishef. Feelings of helplessness. The humiliation of defeat. Fear, hatred, and guilt. Every emotion Jake had buried. Every wound he had forced himself to ignore. The seal had not been holding back just power, but had been holding back suffering. Jake's eyes snapped open. Cathedral slammed another fist into Jake's face. The teen's head whipped sideways. Blood sprayed. Cathedral pulled back his fist, but then Jake grabbed his wrist. The devil blinked. Jake's swollen eye slowly opened, its iris trembling. Veins darkened around the eye socket. Cathedral felt the aura immediately. It was chaotic, broken, terrifying. Jake looked at him with the expression of an animal cornered for too long. Cathedral ripped his arm free, but Jake lunged. No stance, no technique, no warning, just violence. Cathedral sidestepped. Jake missed. Or rather, he ignored the miss. His shoulder crashed into Cathedral's chest. The devil staggered. Jake grabbed him by the ears and smashed his forehead into Cathedral's face. Cathedral recoiled. Jake hit him again and again. His own forehead split open. Blood poured down his face, but he didn't care. Cathedral drove a knee into Jake's stomach, and the teen folded. Cathedral followed up with an uppercut. Jake spat blood and then bit down on Cathedral's fist. The devil's eyes widened. Jake's teeth sank into his knuckles. Cathedral punched him again with his free hand, and Jake's nose exploded, yet still he refused to let go. Cathedral tore his hand free. Jake charged, wild and unbalanced. Cathedral slipped his right and dodged his left, leaned away from a hook, then Jake threw himself forward. Cathedral hit him with a straight punch to the face, but Jake took it. The punch broke his nose. He crashed into Cathedral anyway. The two tumbled across the battlefield. Jake clawed and punched, bit, and elbowed. His attacks came from impossible angles. There was no rhythm, but also no openings and no hesitation. Cathedral blocked one strike and took a headbutt. He dodged a punch, and Jake gouged at his eyes. He countered a kick, and Jake grabbed his leg and bit into his calf. What the hell are you? Cathedral says in frustration, hurling several quick bursts of energy. Jake runs towards him, tanking the energy blast to the chest and not even slowing down. Jake roared and enraged. Cathedral punched him in the mouth, and another of Jake's teeth flew free. The teen spit blood into Cathedral's eyes. The devil instinctively flinched. Jake seized the moment. A punch, but Cathedral blocked. Another, blocked. Jake smashed his own forehead into Cathedral's nose again. The devil staggered. Jake grabbed his face and drove him head first through a boulder. Cathedral erupted from the rubble. A spinning kick smashed Jake's ribs, and several cracked. Jake didn't slow down. He lunged through the kick. Cathedral punched him. Jake punched back, both connecting. Cathedral's fist shattered Jake's cheekbone. but Jake's punch dislodged Kazuya's jaw, and the devil stumbled. Inside his soul, the negative energy leaked steadily from the damaged seal. What had once been only wisps of black smoke now flowed through the crack in sluggish streams, pooling across the floor of the soul space like spilled ink. The air grew heavy and cold. The walls trembled faintly as the emotions trapped behind the seal pressed against the opening, desperate to escape months of imprisonment. Emrock continued scratching. His claws screeched against the blood-soaked runes, sending tiny fissures spiderwebbing through the layered spell circle. The crack widened, more darkness seeped through, more hatred, more grief, more pain. The negative energy swirled around Jake's dormant spirit, clinging to him like a second skin, its presence growing stronger with every heartbeat. Ymora grabbed the wolf. "You fool!" Emrock shook him off. "No, we need more." "He's losing his mind," Ymora shouts. "He is nothing more than an animal right now. He may have more power, but it is too dangerous for him to fight someone like Kazuya without thinking. You have to stop this." "You fought him with everything you had, and still could not win," Emrock says. "Without his sealed power being released, Jake does not stand a chance against this opponent. This is our last and best shot at pulling off an upset." The seal groaned. Ancient runes flickered erratically as another fracture spread through the blood-red circle. More black smoke escaped. It did not rise aimlessly into the air. It poured outward with purpose, surging toward Jake's spirit in writhing streams that coiled around his arms, his chest, and his throat. Outside, Jake's aura exploded. Black and crimson energy erupted from his body in jagged waves, tearing up chunks of earth and sending seawater rushing away from the crater around him. His muscles tensed. Veins darkened beneath his skin, branching across his neck and arms like cracks spreading through glass. His pupils shrank until they were little more than pinpricks surrounded by trembling irises. The change wasn't clean. Jake convulsed violently as the negative energy forced its way through him. His breathing became ragged and uneven. His fingers curled into claws, digging trenches into the stone beneath his feet. The aura around him pulsed wildly, flaring high one moment and collapsing the next, as though his body could barely contain what was awakening inside of him. Every hateful thought, every bitter memory, every ounce of pain he had buried was being dragged to the surface and weaponized. Kazuya backed away, not far enough to be called fear, just a single measured step as his instincts warned him that something fundamental had changed. The boy before him was still battered, still exhausted, and still weaker, but the rhythm of his movements was gone. The hesitation was gone. The logic was gone. Jake slowly raised his head, blood dripping from his chin as the aura writhed around him like a living thing, and for the first time in the battle, his presence felt less like that of a fighter, and more like a disaster waiting to happen. The devil attacked with a left hook. Jake didn't dodge, he stepped into it. His jaw snapped sideways. He seized Kazuya's arm. The devil tried to pull free, but Jake wouldn't let go. Kazuya punched him again. Jake ignored it. A third punch, still ignored. Jake dragged Kazuya closer and sank his teeth into the devil's shoulder. Kazuya roared. A burst of crimson energy exploded point blank. Jake was blown backward, his shirt burned away and his chest blackened. He rolled, stopped, then slowly stood. Blood poured from his mouth. His left arm hung uselessly. His body trembled. But his eyes never left Kazuya. They were starving. Kazuya frowned. For the first time since the battle began, the devil had no idea what Jake was going to do next. And that terrified him more than any technique ever could. Kazuya attacked first. He threw a straight punch, but Jake didn't dodge again. The devil's fist buried itself into the teen's stomach. A shockwave blasted outward. Jake folded around the blow. Blood sprayed from his mouth. Kazeda expected him to fall, but instead Jake grabbed his wrist. The devil's eyes widened. Jake roared and headbutted him. A resounding crack echoed outward as their skulls collided. Kazeda stumbled backward. Jake followed with a looping right. Kazeda slipped. Jake spun too far and lost his footing. He fell to one knee. Kazeda's heel crashed into the side of his head, and Jake skidded across the battlefield. Stone and dirt sprayed behind him. Slowly, he stood back up. Inside Jake's mind, Ymura stared in horror. The black smoke continued pouring from the damaged seal. The crack was spreading on its own now. Jake. No response. The teen spirit crouched at the center of the soul space, wrapped in writhing shadows. His body trembled violently. His face was hidden. Only his eyes remained visible, maddened and animalistic, focused entirely on violence. Ymura stepped towards him. The shadows lashed out and Ymura grimaced in pain. Jake's buried emotions were actively resisting being locked away again. Outside, Kazeda threw a spinning kick. Jake raised both arms. The kick hit them hard and Jake screamed but charged anyway. He was not incapable of feeling pain, because even animals feel pain. But the pain made him attack fiercer and more desperate. He wanted to hurt Kazeda for hurting him. Kazeda punched him in the face. Jake's nose exploded with blood. The devil threw a second punch and Jake's cheekbone shattered. Kazeda stepped backward and Jake lunged. Kazeda ducked a hook. Jake immediately tackled him. The devil slammed an elbow into his spine. Jake fought through the pain and kept coming. Kazeda kneed him in the ribs. Jake vomited blood onto Kazeda's chest, then drove his forehead into the devil's lower jaw. Kazeda staggered. Jake swung and Kazeda blocked, but the impact still pushed him backward. The devil frowned. The hits were getting heavier. Jake swung again and again. Every strike carried all of his body weight, and every strike threatened to injure him as much as his opponent. Kazeda slipped the next punch, but Jake's other fist crashed into his jaw. The devil's head snapped sideways. Jake followed with an elbow, then a knee. Kazeda blocked the elbow and caught the knee. Suddenly, Jake sank his teeth into the devil's forearm. Kazeda snarled and blasted him point blank with crimson energy. Jake flew backward. His chest burned black and smoke rose from his skin. He rolled, stood, and charged again. Kazeda stared. The kid wasn't fighting to win anymore. He wasn't protecting himself. He wasn't pacing himself. He wasn't thinking. Every movement was simply hit or die trying. Inside Jake's mind, Ymura dropped to one knee beside the damaged seal. The runes were fading. He traced his fingers across them. The blood burned cold. Jake was gone, lost beneath the flood of repressed emotions. When Danny and the other mages had created this seal, they had thought only of the immediate danger. Jake's hatred was consuming him. His grief threatened to drown him. His rage was turning him into someone he no longer recognized. They had used blood magic to lock those emotions away, believing that if they could remove the pain, the boy would have a chance to heal. He would no longer be a danger to himself and everyone around him. But healing wasn't something that could be forced. The negative emotions had never disappeared. They had never weakened, and they had never even changed. When someone suffers a traumatic loss, time becomes one of the most important ingredients in recovery. Memories dull, perspective changes, anger cools and grief softens around the edges until it becomes something that can be carried instead of something that crushes. The pain doesn't vanish, but a person learns to live beside it. Jake had been denied that. The seal had frozen his suffering. Everything he had buried remained exactly as it had the moment it first appeared. The terror, the helplessness, the self-loathing, the rage. Time had passed for Jake, but for the emotions imprisoned behind the seal, not a single second had passed. They were still as fresh as open wounds, as raw as the day they had appeared. Emiya closed his eyes. He could feel them now. The grief of losing people he cared about. The hatred directed at enemies. The hatred directed at himself. The fear of being powerless. The guilt of surviving when others had not. He could feel them because he had experienced every one of them himself at one time or another in his life. Unlike Jake, he had been given the time to process his emotions and move on from them. The pain, the anger, the regret and sorrow, they still lingered, but they were manageable. They had not wholly consumed him. Jake had been robbed of that. Every memory replayed endlessly behind the seal, unable to fade, unable to heal, unable to be understood. They had been denied the things emotions required to become manageable: time and acceptance. The seal wasn't a cure, it was a prison. The hatred remained inside, unchanged and waiting, growing heavier with every attempt to ignore it. Emiya's hand trembled. No wonder Jake had disappeared so quickly. This wasn't a battle of willpower. No person could simply overpower so much suffering unleashed all at once. The seal hadn't hidden a monster. It had hidden a wounded child screaming into the darkness. The monster was the emotions that had been bottled up and ignored, left to be dealt with at some unspecified future date. And now that time had come with no preparation, and those screams had become so loud that they drowned out everything else. Emiya looked up. Beyond the cracked seal spell circle, he could barely make out Jake's spirit, curled in on itself and surrounded by writhing shadows. Not consumed or destroyed, but buried. The boy wasn't gone. He was trapped beneath every moment of pain he had never been allowed to process. And Emiya finally understood the terrible irony. The seal had saved Jake's life, but by protecting him from his pain, it had also protected the pain from him. And now both had become too large to ignore. "This is not what we need right now," Emiya says. "There must be another way." Emiya stops scratching at the seal and turns his head to stare at Emiya in confusion. "You, someone who thrives on violence and suffering, think that this is unnecessary? You think that I am being unreasonable?" "You are a spirit," Emiya says. "You do not understand a thing about mortal emotions. We may win this battle, but Jake will not be left in any condition for us to be able to move forward in the tournament. And is that all that matters to you? Winning battles only because they move you closer to your ultimate goal of killing Kui and your sister. If Jake dies because you were too consumed by your own desires, how does that benefit him at all? I care about Jake, but you care only about how he gets you closer to your revenge." Emiya's eyes narrowed. "You think you understand me." "I know enough," Emiya growled. "The moment Jake dies, you die with him. Of course you want him alive. Don't pretend your concern extends beyond that. I hated Hui and Inyana long before I met Jake. And you still do. I have spent years dreaming of revenge. They stole everything from me. They killed my father. They killed Emiya. And they killed whatever chance I had at happiness. You were always going to become what you are. All you make are excuses. Our experiences are what shapes us. Again, you prove that your care for mortals is nothing more than veiled superiority. You do not understand mortals or what emotions can do to us." Emiya's fur bristled. "You speak of Jake's future as if you care about it, as if you're protecting him from me. But where was this concern when you encouraged him to fight stronger and stronger opponents? When you taught him techniques that rip his body apart? When you pushed him into a tournament where every match ends in death? Ymura looked away. I am honest with him. I hide nothing. Amarok barked a laugh. Are you? The wolf stepped closer, and Ymura's head snapped toward him. You know exactly what is happening. Amarok gestured toward the cracked seal. You see yourself. The words hit harder than any punch Cassidy had thrown, and Ymura remained silent. Amarok pressed on. You call this reckless because it reminds you of your own hatred. The wolf's eyes narrowed. You think revenge is something you can control. Ymura clenched his fists. My hatred gives me purpose. So does his. It is different. You buried your pain beneath revenge. Amarok pointed at the seal. Jake's was buried beneath magic. But you both pretended you were stronger than your suffering. Another crack spread through the blood seal. More black smoke escaped. The shadows around Jake stirred. And now you're afraid. Ymura's voice dropped. I know what hatred becomes. Amarok blinked, and the Sakari stared at the broken runes. I know what it costs. His voice was quieter now, less angry, more tired. I spent years believing revenge would heal me. The shadows flickered. It did not. I killed. I suffered. And I became stronger. His fist trembled, but every victory left me emptier than the last. Amarok was silent. Ymura looked toward the shrouded figure of Jake. I cannot allow him to become me. The wolf followed his gaze. For a moment, neither spoke. Jake's spirit remained motionless, drowned beneath the flood. Amarok finally sighed. You misunderstand me. Ymura frowned. I don't want him to become you either. The wolf lowered himself beside the seal. I don't even want him to become this. He looked at the darkness leaking from the cracks. But I alone understand what needs to be done in order for him to survive. His claws pressed lightly against the runes. Ymura stared at the seal, at the hatred, the grief, the fear, all of it alive, all of it waiting. He slowly realized the argument wasn't really about winning this battle or the tournament, or even about revenge. Repair the seal. What? I said repair it. Nothing can be done about what has leaked out so far, but we can prevent any more from escaping. If Jake can deal with his past a little at a time, maybe he will find a different path. Maybe he will move on in a way that I could not. Neither of you can beat Cassidy, Amarok says. You have both proven that the devil far exceeds either of you. Jake's sealed power is the only way to survive this battle. I have lent my strength in this battle. I pushed that devil harder than anyone thought possible. And even now, Jake continues to surprise Cassidy. But what have you done? You say you wish for him to survive and not become someone like me, but you do nothing to avoid that. On the contrary, you are the only one actively working to harm him. If you truly want to help the boy, you will repair that seal and work with me to come up with another way. Amarok glares at the Sakari, a low growl in his throat. Work with you? Jake may have come to regard you as somewhat of an ally, but I still do not trust you. Then trust that I want the same things as you right now. Help me win this fight. Then you can return to whatever other philosophical differences you may have with me. You speak like you have an idea. I may, but how will you ever know if you do not give me a chance? Amarok sighs loudly, backing away from the spell circle. Alright, what do you propose? Emiya knelt beside the damaged seal. The blood-red runes flickered weakly. Black smoke still escaped through the fractures, but the flow had slowed considerably. He traced the largest crack. The seal was created to suppress emotion. Yes. So it doesn't care what fills it. Emrock's eyes widened. Emiya looked up. Hatred and sorrow created this imbalance. Jake still had not completely processed the loss of his mother, and leaving behind all of his friends and family for their own protection. When Hui killed Claire, it was too much for him to handle. That is the moment the dam broke for him, and he could no longer control his emotions. He tapped the runes. We must replace the negative emotions that have leaked out to balance the spell once more. That, Emiya whispers, that could work. The spell the mages put in place is like a balloon filled with water. I punctured that sphere and the water began to leak out in a steady stream. Because of that imbalance, the spell began to fail in its containment. And if we can refill what was lost, we can then redraw the part you damaged. But where can we get enough emotion to replace what leaked out? We will seal my own emotions, Emiya says. It is his idea, but it is clear he is still struggling with the decision. My vision has long been clouded by my own anger and hatred. Just like Jake, my entire existence has been in pursuit of revenge. My sister and Hui took away someone that I cared about, in a very similar way that Jake had Claire taken from him. But unlike him, I was forced to serve under Hui as nothing more than an attack dog. I lost my freedom and myself. For 10,000 years I was sealed away with nothing but my thoughts to keep me company. All of my pain and rage festered within that amulet's prison. It is my fault that Jake was ever set upon this path. I can never undo what I have done, but I can make good with him. I ruined his life, yet he has been the first person, and I cannot recall how long, that treated me as anything other than a monster. And I am. I was meant to take over his body and erase his soul from existence, but he fought me and held on. Instead of me erasing his soul, he restored to me the one that I had lost long ago. Emiya whispers. Are you being serious? Emiya nods. And you had better never tell the boy any of this. Emiya laughs. Agreed. Let's do this. Emiya kneels, placing his hands on the blood seal. I need you to become a conduit between me and the spell. Transfer my pain into the void and fill the empty space. Once it is balanced out, you'll have to come up with a way to repair the circle and close the circuit. And now you're bossing me around? Emiya mutters. Not sure I like this change. You were easier to deal with when you just stood in the corner and glared. If this works, I will play whatever part I need in order to survive this tournament. The wolf rolled his eyes, then pressed his paw against the broken runes. Silver light spread outward. The blood-red spell circle trembled. The cracks stopped widening. Silver threads branched from Emiya's paw, interweaving with the damaged seal. The wolf winced, his body flickered. The runes drank deeply from him. The seal changed. The blood-red symbols dimmed, and new silver markings appeared between them. Emiya suddenly feels a pain in his chest, followed by a feeling of being electrocuted. He shouts out in pain, but does not lift his hands from the spell circle. Outside, Cathedral ducked beneath Jake's wild swing. The teen stumbled past him. The devil drove an elbow into Jake's spine, and Jake crashed to his knees. Kazda kicked him across the face. The teen tumbled, rolled, and stood again, but slower this time. The black smoke pouring from his body had begun to thin. His pupils widened slightly. The madness in his eyes flickered. Kazda closed the distance in a blur. A knife-hand strike glanced off Jake's shoulder, followed instantly by a short elbow that snapped his head sideways. Jake answered with a looping hook. Kazda leaned beneath it, pivoted on his lead foot, and drove a sharp kick into Jake's thigh, before whipping a back fist across his cheek. Jake reeled, caught himself, and lunged again with a clumsy tackle. Kazda sidestepped at the last instant, guiding the momentum past him with a forearm, and hammered a downward strike between Jake's shoulders as the teen stumbled forward. Jake spun with another flurry, throwing heavy punches from every angle. Kazda weaved through them with economical movements, parrying one arm aside, slipping inside the neck swing, and answering with rapid body shots that forced Jake backwards step by step. A sweeping kick clipped Jake's ankle, breaking his balance for an instant. And Kazda followed with a driving side kick that shoved him several feet away. Jake skidded across the ground, regaining his footing with visible effort, and raised his guard again as Kazda settled slightly back into his stance, already moving before Jake could fully reset. Kazda noticed the change immediately. His grin returned. "So," the devil stepped forward, "your desperate last gasp is running out." Jake blinked. The ringing in his ears faded. His breathing slowed. The black and crimson aura around him dimmed. Silver wisps began weaving through it. The devil rushed with a straight punch. Jake moved, slipping outside the strike. Kazda blinked, and Jake's fist buried itself in his ribs. The devil staggered but quickly retaliated with a hook. Jake ducked. Kazda threw up a knee, but Jake sidestepped. The devil tried to hit him in the face with an inward elbow strike, but Jake blocked with both hands. The devil's eyes narrowed. The recklessness was gone. The fear was gone. The rage was still there, but muted and contained. Jake took a step backward. For the first time in several minutes, he actually looked around. The crater, the ocean, the blood coating his hands. "What?" His voice was hoarse. Fragments returned. The armor, the seal, the hatred, and memories flooding outward. Jake grimaced. "I don't know what happened to me," he whispers, mostly to himself. "I am tired of these games," Kazda growls. "You have made a fool of me long enough. There is no reason a no-count like you should have ever lasted this long against me." Jake focused, raising his hands and sliding his feet into a fighting stance. "From the looks of it, I was doing decent enough against you. You mean to tell me you don't remember?" Kazda growls. "Up until the last few minutes, I remember Emiya kicking your ass before running out of steam and tagging me in." "This is ridiculous," Kazda growls. "I don't know what game you're playing, but it's finished. I kill you now and end this farce of a battle." Kazda attacked immediately, but Jake reacted instinctively. Block, pivot, counterattack. His fist slammed into Kazda's jaw, and the devil staggered. The devil attacked again, faster this time. Jake moved with him. Inside Jake's mind, Emiya grimaced. The silver runes brightened. His fur had begun turning gray. The seal drank steadily from him and Emiya. Emiya continued to scream in pain as the spell forcefully ripped raw emotions from him. Everything the spell took left a burning wound inside of the Sicarii, and he struggled to maintain his focus. Slowly, Emiya closed the spell circle with his own essence weaved into the blood magic. The Between them, the void filled as if it had never been breached in the first place. I think it's back to the state it was before, Amarok strains. You can move back now. Ymura does not respond, continuing to scream in pain. He can't stop, Amarok thinks. He's locked into that position. Outside, Cassidy unleashed a flurry of attacks. Left, right, hook, uppercut. Jake blocked the first, slipped the second, parried the third, and stepped inside the fourth. His shoulder struck Cassidy's chest. The devil stumbled. Jake followed with a palm strike, then an elbow, and a knee to the gut. Cassidy retreated. His eyes widened. The boy was weaker. His aura was smaller. The raw power he was using had faded. So why? Why was he not only able to keep up with me, but actually hit me? Kazia stared at the silver wisps swirling through Jake's battered aura. The devil had fought Seraphim warriors, truly terrifying monsters the likes of which humanity cannot even fathom. Saints with magic fueled by faith in the Yazata. He understood ambition. He understood hatred. He understood rage. But this, what was this? It was like he was fighting an entirely different person now. Ymura was strong but cocky, and burned through his power like he was in a hurry. Jake had fought him in a much more reserved and timid manner. The boy was more careful and conserved his stamina. Then he went through that drastic change and fought with a raw fury. Kazed felt like he was no longer fighting a human child, but against a raging beast of the wild. But that power was gone, and the boy should have returned to the way he was. Not this. Jake was fighting him in a way that was blending the style and approach of both himself and Ymura. He was attacking explosively and no longer holding back, but he was still also calculating and efficient. And there was something else. Something familiar. There was an energy intertwined with Jake's that was not his own, but it was not Ymura's either. It was a power that was ancient and strange, but it was definitely something that Kazeda had felt before. The devil's brow furrowed. A memory tugged at him. Silver eyes watching from the darkness. A presence older than nations. Patient, wild, and loyal. Kazeda's eyes widened slightly. The realization sent a chill through him. Kazeda had been so focused on Ymura lurking within Jake, they had completely overlooked the other presence bound to the boy. He had made a mistake. He had assumed the only spirit sharing Jake's body was the Sakari. He had never even considered that the Vitir might also be within the boy. As soon as he recognized it, Kazeda did what he always did when faced with uncertainty. He attacked. Kazeda punched through Jake's guard. His fist buried itself in the chief's chest. Several more ribs snapped, and Jake coughed up more blood. Kazeda seized his face and slammed him into the ground. The earth cratered, and Jake's body went limp. Kazeda threw him aside. The teen bounced across the broken terrain. Jake slowly pushed himself upright. Kazeda's expression darkened, and he launched a volley of crimson energy blasts at the teen. The crimson blasts screamed across the battlefield. Jake ran toward them. He slipped the first, ducked beneath the second. The third exploded against his shoulder and spun him sideways. He planted a foot, recovered, and kept moving. Kazeda appeared in front of him with Black Shinkonito. No matter how fast the human was, he could not outspeed teleportation. He threw a straight punch. Jake deflected it with his forearm and stepped inside the devil's reach, delivering a palm strike, crashing into Kazeda's sternum. The devil barely budged. Jake followed with an elbow to the jaw, then a knee to the liver, a low kick to the calf. Kazeda blocked high, but he failed to defend against the kick, and his leg buckled. Jake pivoted with a spinning back fist, but Kazeda ducked. The devil countered with a hook powerful enough to shatter stone, but Jake slipped outside it. His heel chopped downward onto Kazuda's wrist. The arm dropped. Jake trapped it beneath his own. An elbow smashed into the devil's temple. Kazuda ripped free and headbutted him. Jake's nose burst open with a spray of blood and the teen staggered. Kazuda seized his throat with one hand and lifted him up off the ground. Jake hooked an arm over Kazuda's shoulder. He shifted his hips and threw the devil over his body. Kazuda slammed into the ground. The earth erupted. The devil rolled to his feet instantly and snapped a kick outward. Jake checked it and countered with a straight jab. Kazuda parried the blow. A sidekick hammered Kazuda's knee. The devil stumbled. Jake stepped around him. His arm wrapped around Kazuda's neck. He dropped his weight, and Kazuda flipped over Jake's hip and crashed onto his back. Before the devil could rise, Jake stomped his ribs. He dropped an axe kick down toward Kazuda's jaw. Kazuda rolled, and the kick split the earth into a trench that snaked outward several yards. The devil sprang up. Psychic force exploded outward. Jake was hurled backward. He twisted in midair and landed in a crouch. Kazuda was already there. The devil threw another straight punch. Jake slipped and attempted another elbow to the face. Kazuda blocked. Jake brought up a knee. Kazuda caught it. Jake yanked and Kazuda hopped on one leg. Jake immediately swept the other and the devil hit the ground. Jake followed him down. His forearm slid beneath Kazuda's chin. His legs wrapped around the devil's torso and locked the devil in a chokehold. Kazuda's eyes widened as Jake squeezed. The devil snarled and psychic energy exploded, throwing Jake off. He rolled back to his feet and reset, waiting to see what Kazuda would do next. Kazuda touched his throat. The human had almost choked him out. The devil fills with rage at the thought of being choked unconscious by a mere human. Kazuda charged, his aura flaring out all around him as his emotions began to get the best of him. Jake met him and their fists collided. Shockwaves rippled outward. Kazuda threw a left and Jake parried. He threw a right, again parried. He threw a left hook. Jake ducked. He tried an uppercut, but Jake slipped. His shoulder rammed into Kazuda's chest and the devil staggered. Jake's fist buried itself in his stomach. It was a liver shot. Kazuda's body spasmed, and he began to drool blood from the corners of his mouth. He spun with a back kick. Kazuda caught it, but Jake expected him to. He jumped. His free leg whipped around, and the heel struck Kazuda behind the ear. The devil released him, and Jake landed and immediately attacked again. He threw a jab, a cross, a body hook, an elbow, then a low kick. The attacks flowed seamlessly. There was no wasted movement. There was no hesitation before his attacks. Each strike set up the next. Kazuda blocked the punches, but the elbow slipped through. The low kick swept his ankle. The devil stumbled and Jake lunged. Kazuda seized him by the collar and punched him. Jake's head snapped backward. Another punch, then a third. Jake's lips split. His eyes swelled again. Kazuda lifted him overhead and hurled him through a cliffside. Stone collapsed. Dust billowed and the devil waited. Jake exploded from the rubble, faster than before. Kazuda swung. Jake ducked beneath it. He countered with an uppercut, then a body shot and a left hook. Kazuda blocked two. The third landed. Jake clinched. A knee smashed into Kazuda's stomach. Kazuda shoved him away. Jake advanced and Kazuda retreated. This shouldn't be happening. Kazuda had slaughtered warriors older than kingdoms. He had conquered armies. He had fought in both angelic wars. His style was simple. Overwhelming speed, overwhelming strength. Psychic domination through his Chonryaku powers. He didn't need technique. No one survived long enough to force him to learn. But Jake had. Now every flaw was being exposed. The devil swung. Jake slipped outside. A hand seized Kazuya's wrist. Another gripped his elbow. Jake twisted. The joint bent the wrong way. Kazuya's arm snapped with a crack. The devil's eyes widened. Jake released him before thrusting a sidekick into Kazuya's sternum. Kazuya slid backward, wincing in pain and holding his chest with his good arm. The broken arm regenerated almost instantly. Jake didn't care that Kazuya could heal. The stamina would still be consumed. Jake lowered his stance. Blood dripped from his chin. Many of his ribs were broken. One eye was swollen shut. His nose was broken. His body trembled with exhaustion, yet his movements remained smooth, measured and patient. Silver wisps curled around his battered frame. Kazuya circled him. Jake circled back. The devil no longer attacked recklessly, not after realizing something horrifying him. Jake was beating him at a technical level. He had fought thousands of opponents. He had killed heroes. He had slain monsters and Aesir gods. He had crushed entire armies, but he had never once learned how to fight. And now, for the first time in centuries, he was facing someone who had. He understood ambition. He understood hatred. He understood rage. The devil had never needed technique. His punches shattered stone. His speed eclipsed that of nearly every opponent he had ever faced. His psychic powers allowed him to throw enemies around like toys. Strength had always been the answer. If an enemy was skilled, then he just simply had to overpower them. If they were fast, he just had to become faster. If they were clever, he had to crush them before their plans mattered. Jake could never afford to think that way. Humans were fragile. They had to learn efficiency because they lacked power. They had to learn leverage because they could not rely on strength. Kazuya was beginning to learn that every hour Jake had spent in Taekwondo, every bruise he had suffered learning Jiu-Jitsu, and every throw practiced in Judo had been preparing him for opponents exactly like this. The devil threw a straight punch. Jake wasn't watching the fist, he was watching Kazuya's shoulder rotate forward and the slight shift of his weight onto his front foot that preceded the attack. Before the strike was even halfway extended, Jake was already moving. He deflected the punch with his forearm, stepped outside the devil's lead shoulder and drove an elbow into his jaw. Kazuya retaliated with a hook. Jake ducked beneath it, not because he was faster, but because he already knew where the punch would go. The devil's hips had telegraphed the motion before the strike began. Jake had spent years learning to read the body. A fighter's shoulders betrayed their intentions. His hips revealed where the power came from, and his feet exposed his balance. Every movement had a tell. Every attack announced itself before it was thrown. Kazuya had never learned to hide those tells because nobody had ever survived long enough to exploit them. The devil attacked again, a kick aimed at Jake's ribs. The teen checked the kick with his shin and immediately countered with one of his own. The impact staggered Kazuya. Jake followed with a palm strike to the shoulder plexus, and then an elbow beneath the collarbone. The devil grimaced. His attacks weren't especially powerful, but they were precise. Kazuya realized Jake was attacking his body like a system. The liver, the floating ribs, the brachial plexus, the nerves running beneath the jaw, the solar plexus, pressure points, weak points, places where a small amount of force produced an outsized effect. Kazuya could regenerate flesh. He could not stop his nervous system from reacting. Every strike disrupted him, and every disruption created another opening. The devil lunged to grab Jake by the throat. For centuries, that had ended fights. But Jake rotated his arm against the weak side of Kazuya's grip and trapped the devil's wrist against his chest. He stepped across Kazuya's center line, lowered his hips, and suddenly the stronger fighter was the one losing balance. Kazuya's eyes widened and he was airborne. He crashed into the ground hard enough to crater the earth. The devil immediately sprang to his feet. Jake hadn't overpowered him, he had manipulated him. The realization irritated Kazuya. Jake had been doing it the entirety of this phase of their fight. His opponent had calmed enough to no longer be overwhelmed or intimidated, and now he was fighting using his brain and his instincts. If Kazuya planted his feet too heavily, Jake attacked the legs. If he leaned forward, Jake redirected him farther than he intended to go. If he resisted a pull, Jake pushed. If he resisted a push, Jake pulled. Every action became another opportunity. Kazuya relied on superior attributes, but Jake relied on principles. Distance, timing, balance, leverage. The devil had mastered war, Jake had mastered fundamentals. Kazuya was still stronger, still faster. He still possessed greater power and infernal energy. If the two stood still and exchanged blows, Jake would die. But combat wasn't fought standing still. Jake understood angles, he understood momentum. He understood how to make a stronger opponent unable to use his advantages. Every parry flowed naturally into a counterattack. Every block positioned him for the next movement. Every strike served two purposes: inflict damage and create another opening. Years of martial arts had taught him how to fight. Taught him how to fight against people stronger than himself. And his time with Ulquiorra had taught him how to translate his fundamentals into tools for survival. Kazuya screamed in frustration, his energy erupting outward in all directions with his anger. He darted high up into the air and began rapidly firing bursts of energy down at his opponent. Die! The devil screamed, his composure breaking and his face twisting with rage and madness. Jake calmed his breathing and began evading the energy attacks with an ease and grace. As the smoke cleared, Jake's grin widened. Are you done yet? Come on, Kazuya, I thought devils were supposed to be dangerous. You won't be able to avoid this! Kazuya threw his hands together and began concentrating all of his power into a single swirling mass of destruction. Fire cascaded from his ruined human disguise as more and more infernal power poured into the sphere forming between his claws. The blazing halo behind his head had swollen into a burning ring the size of a steering wheel, crackling with red lightning. The attack hanging above him looked less like an energy ball and more like a newborn star. Kazuya's jagged teeth flashed. Mock me while you can, mortal! The sphere pulsed and the ground trembled. When this strikes, Kazuya growled, there will be nothing left of you. Not flesh, not even a soul. Jake planted his feet. The wind from the gathering energy whipped his hair across his face. Dust and fragments of stone spiraled around him. Every instinct screamed at him to run. Instead, he raised one hand. Still not enough. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across the devil's monstrous features. What? I said, that shit is weak, Jake grins. You throw that at me and I'm just going to serve it right back at you. I've seen retarded babies gather more power than that. Kazuya's rage increased exponentially, his energy sparkling and flashing wildly. The fiery crown above his head and the infernal horns that appeared from his brow became more pronounced. The devil's attack swelled, drawing in all of Kazuya's anger and frustration. I will erase you and this entire damned island! What is he doing? Butler whispers, frightened. That psycho is taunting him. There's no way he can block that attack. If he dodges, we're all gonna die. Seno studies them, trying to figure out Jake's plan. What are you up to? He whispers, contemplatively. Kazura looks over at Cedrion. You are going to step in, right? If Kazuya fires that blast, he really will destroy this entire island. Cedrion chuckles. Why don't you just calm down and watch? I believe this battle is about to take a sharp turn. Jake smiled. A spark appeared above his palm, tiny, harmless, and blue. Then another and another. The sparks gathered together, weaving threads of sapphire light through the air. The energy stretched and condensed, forming a shaft longer than Jake was tall. Glittering motes drifted from its surface like fragments of frozen starlight. The weapon took shape, a lance, perfectly smooth and brilliantly blue. Its edges shimmered with impossible sharpness. The entire island seemed to hold its breath. Even Kazdis stared. "What is that?" the devil whispered. Jake wrapped his fingers around the lance. Power surged through his arm. The weapon hummed like a tuning fork struck by the hand of a god. "You want to know why I kept telling you to charge it up?" Jake asked. The blue light reflected in his eyes. "Because the bigger that thing gets," he drew his arm back, "the harder you're going to explode." Kazuya's eyes widened. For the first time since the battle began, genuine fear crossed his face. Jake hurled the lance. The weapon crossed the distance in an instant, leaving a glowing scar of blue light through the air. Kazuya tried to move, but it was too late. The lance struck the center of the infernal sphere. For a heartbeat, everything became silent. The blue point vanished into the mass of crimson energy. Then the sphere collapsed inward. Kazuya's scream echoed across the island. A single crack split the sky. The compressed energy folded into itself, blue and red light twisting together in impossible spirals. A colossal bloom of sapphire and scarlet detonated above the island, expanding outward like a celestial flower opening at the end of the world. Rings of incandescent energy tore through the clouds, vaporizing them instantly. Lightning flashed inside the explosion's heart by the thousands, jagged veins of blue and crimson racing through a sphere of annihilation. The shockwave hammered the earth. Mountains of flame rolled across the sky. The air itself ignited. For an instant, the explosion became a second sun hanging over Jockey Island, flooding the battlefield with blinding light of torrents of burning energy poured outward in every direction. And at the center of that impossible inferno, Kazuya vanished into the detonation. The light lingered long after the blast itself had ended. A burning sphere of blue and crimson radiance hung over the battlefield, slowly shrinking as its stolen fury bled away into the sky. The deafening roar faded by degrees, becoming a distant rumble that rolled across the ocean like the growl of some sleeping titan. Then came an unnatural silence. The jungle that had covered much of the island moments before was simply gone. Miles of emerald canopy had been flattened beneath the shockwave. Ancient trees lie scattered like broken matchsticks, their trunks splintered and peeled apart. Vast sections of forest had been burned down to blackened skeletal stumps. Here and there, isolated patches still burned, orange flames dancing across shattered wood and molten stone. A great scar had been carved through the heart of the island. Smoke drifted upward from a crater so enormous that it looked as though a meteor had fallen from the heavens. The ground around it glowed with veins of molten rock. Pools of glassy earth reflected the fading light of the dying inferno. Ash fell from the sky. Gray flakes drifted through the air like snow. At the center of the devastation, a shape stirred. A wet sound echoed through the crater. Something dragged itself through the smoke. The first thing to emerge was a claw. Blackened finger bones scraped against the cracked stone as the creature pulled itself forward. Kazuya rose slowly. The sight was enough to make several spectators recoil. Entire sections of the devil's body had been stripped down to the skeleton beneath. The explosion had torn away huge swaths of flesh from his torso. Ribs protruded from his chest in jagged rows, yellow-white and cracked, glowing faintly from the heat still trapped within them. Through the gaps between those exposed bones, crimson fire pulsed where organs should have been. There was no heart, only flame. The right side of his face was gone. Not wounded, but completely gone. Skin, muscle, tendons, everything had been blasted away. Part of his skull stared nakedly at the world. The exposed bone had fractured in several places, spiderweb cracks running through its surface. Molten blood trickled through those fractures like lava, seeping through stone. One eye remained. The other socket was an empty cavern of shattered bone, yet something still burned within it. Deep inside the hollow cavity, a single ember glowed, a tiny point of crimson light. It pulsed slowly, patiently, like the dying coal of a hellfire that refused to go out. Each pulse illuminated the inside of the socket, revealing glimpses of charred nerves and blackened fragments of tissue that should not have remained alive. The surviving eye fixed itself upon Jake. It blazed with hatred. Not human hatred, not even animal hatred. It was something older, something eternal. It was the kind of hate that could survive the collapse of entire worlds. The kind of hatred that could endure for ages beneath mountains and oceans while waiting for another chance to kill. A low sound escaped the devil. At first it seemed like a growl. Then Jake realized it was laughter. Kazda's ruined jaw hung partially detached from the rest of his skull. Exposed teeth grinned through strips of hanging flesh. Fire leaked from the corners of his mouth each time he laughed. The sound was horrible, a bubbling, cackling noise like a corpse trying to choke on molten iron. Yet somehow he was laughing. The crimson halo floating behind his head flickered weakly. The surviving wings twitched. Burning blood dripped from exposed bones and hissed against the shattered ground. Still he stood, still he smiled, and still that ember burned within the darkness of the empty socket as he laughed. A devil reduced to little more than bone, hatred, and living fire. And somehow, impossibly, Kazda was still alive. Kazda moved first. Even half destroyed, he crossed the distance between them in a blur. The remaining energy wings snapped open. A burst of fire exploded behind him. Jake barely saw the movement. He threw himself sideways as claws carved through the space where his throat had been an instant before. The devil's claws cut through the air with a sound like swords being swung. Jake landed in a roll, narrowly evading the slash. Kazda's follow-up strike punched a crater into the ground. "Are you running now?" Kazda roared. "Where is that confidence you had before?" Jake sprang back to his feet. "I'm not running," he said, circling, "but I'm not going to let you hit me either." The devil snarled. The ember burning inside the empty socket flared brighter. Then he attacked again with another slash. Jake ducked. Another slash. Jake leaned backward, the claws passing inches from his nose. A third came from below. Jake hopped backward just as the talons ripped through the stone beneath him, scattering fragments into the air. Kazda was still terrifyingly fast, but no longer impossibly fast. With a furious scream, Kazda thrust out one hand and a cluster of crimson firebolts erupted toward Jake. Jake moved instantly. One passed over his shoulder, another scorched past his ribs. A third struck the ground and detonated behind him, showering him with molten rock. Heat blasted against his back. Jake spun through the smoke. Kazda appeared inside it. A skeletal fist hurtled toward his face. Jake raised both forearms. The impact boomed like a hammer striking steel. Pain shot through his arms. The force launched him backward across the crater floor. He skidded several yards before regaining his balance. Kazda lunged after him. Jake stepped forward. The devil threw a right hook. Jake slipped inside it. The fist thundered past his cheek. Jake retaliated immediately. A straight punch shot toward Kazda's exposed jaw. The devil twisted. Jake's knuckles brushed empty air. Kazda's knee came upward. Jake blocked it with an elbow. The impact rattled his entire skeleton. Both fighters separated, and they both immediately attacked again. Cassidy spun. His remaining wing whipped around with enough force to generate a miniature tornado of sparks and flame. Jake dropped beneath it. The burning wind passed overhead. He rose into a punch. Cassidy jerked his head aside and missed. The devil countered with a claw strike. Jake pivoted. It too missed. Punch, miss. Kick, miss. Claw, miss. For several seconds, neither could touch the other. They moved across the shattered crater like a dueling storm. Fire exploded around them. Stone cracked beneath their feet. Ash swirled through the air. Jake's breathing grew heavier. Cassidy burst forward again. 3 punches. Jake blocked the first, deflected the second, slipped the third. A claw followed immediately. Jake twisted away. The talons grazed his chest, slicing through the air and not breaking his skin. Too close. Way too close. Jake retaliated with a spinning back kick. Cassidy leaned backward. The kick missed the devil's face by less than an inch. Both fighters landed and reset. The crater floor between them steamed from the heat pouring off Cassidy's body. The devil's exposed ribs glowed like metal inside a forge. Fire leaked from cracks in his skull. That ember burning in the ruined eye socket continued to pulse. Steady, patient, murderous. Yet despite all of that, Jake remained standing. A few minutes ago, that would have been impossible. A few minutes ago, every attack would have landed. But now the gap had narrowed. Cassidy's surviving eye twitched. He had realized it too. The devil lowered himself into a predatory stance. Jake raised his fists. Ash drifted between them. The wind howled through the remaining jungle beyond the crater. Neither moved. Neither blinked. Then simultaneously both launched forward once more. Die! Cassidy growls, closing his hand into a fist in order to seize and crush Jake's heart with biokinesis. Jake tries to block the attack by swapping places with Emiya, but Kazuya teleports behind the team with Black Shunkonito. Kazuya places his hand against Jake's back. As the devil's palm makes contact with Jake's skin, an insidious chill seeps through his skin, enveloping him in an icy embrace that threatens to penetrate the very core of his being. A wave of numbing coldness radiates outward from the point of contact, snaking its way through his veins with a relentless, malevolent intent. Jake's muscles tense involuntarily, his breath hitching in his chest as the frigid sensation spreads like a malignant frost, constricting every movement and sapping the warmth from his soul. A sharp, biting agony courses through his body, as if 1,000 needles of ice are piercing through his flesh, their icy tendrils rooting themselves deep within his nerves. The cold wraps around his limbs like a vice, rendering his fingers and toes sluggish and unresponsive. His thoughts become muddled, as if submerged in a thick, gelid fog that blurs the edges of his consciousness and dulls the sharpness of his mind. Jake grits his teeth against the onslaught, his jaw clenching tightly as he struggles to retain even a semblance of control. The pain intensifies with every passing second, each heartbeat reverberating through his chest like the toll of a funeral bell. A profound sense of helplessness gnaws at his resolve, as if the very essence of his vitality is being siphoned away by the devil's relentless grasp. In the grip of the numbing frost, Jake's vision blurs at the edges, the world around him dimming. Every breath he takes feels like a shard of ice slicing through his lungs. Each inhalation a desperate struggle against the encroaching chill that threatens to claim him in its frigid embrace. Through the haze of agony and numbing cold, Jake catches a glimpse of Kazuda's twisted grin, his features contorted into a perverse mask of satisfaction at the suffering he has inflicted. The devil's eyes gleam with a sadistic glee, reveling in the torment he has wrought upon his adversary. "It's over for you, boy," Kazuda whispers. If only you had been a little faster to react, you might have been able to pull off one more soul switch. What have you done to me? Jake whispers, his skin turning blue. I've closed off all of your arteries, the devil says with a smile. Your blood is no longer moving oxygen to your cells. Your body is dying quite painfully. Jake focuses inward, searching within his soul for the Vitir spirit of Amarok. The Fey spirit residing within him appears as a blinding blue glow. Jake shields his eyes, causing Amarok to lower his brightness until he can become visible. I'm dying, Jake whispers. The devil is just too powerful. No matter what I do, he has a counter. His abilities are just too unfair to be able to overcome. Are you telling me this because it's inevitable, or because you've already given up? Amarok asks. Does it matter? He's blocked me from Ymura. I can't even switch control anymore. The devil has nothing to do with your inability to commune with Ymura, Amarok explains. The Sakari was surprisingly heroic and sacrificed his energy to keep you from losing this fight to your own emotions. I believe he has now slipped into dormancy, and I do not know how long it will take for him to recover consciousness. Damn it, Jake curses. I don't have any other options. Am I now your last resort? Amarok growls, irritated. Have you come to rely on Ymura so much that I am an afterthought? Unlike the Sakari that is cohabiting your body, I was reborn with your creation. My being is a part of your very soul. You must learn to act in conjunction with me in every aspect of your life, instead of treating my presence like another soul to switch in with, like Ymura. You must begin to infuse my power into your every breath. Our energy must become indistinguishable from one another. Jake nods and walks into the glow of Amarok, and his entire subconscious is filled with light. The teen's arteries reopen and color returns to his skin. Jake throws his head back, striking Kazuya's nose and causing the devil to stumble backward in pain. Despite the physical and psychological onslaught, Jake remains resilient, his spirit bolstered by the unseen force that defied Kazuya's expectations. Blood trickles from the devil's nostrils, and his face sets in a scowl of hatred. His eye narrowed, scanning Jake's form with a newfound wariness. Jake's being seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. A thin, film-like glow enveloped his body, shimmering with an ethereal light that seemed to repel the encroaching darkness. His hair stood on end, crackling with static like electricity, each strand charged with the potency of the spiritual forces at play. The battlefield hummed with an eerie resonance, the air heavy with the palpable tension between them. You can't win, boy, Kazuya snarled, his voice reverberating with a desperate resolve. I am eternal, unstoppable, he growled, his voice laced with a mixture of frustration and disbelief. Jake's response was a quiet defiance that belied the chaos surrounding them. His gaze met Kazuya's with a steely determination, his body thrumming with a mystic energy that seemed to shield him from the devil's grasp. Die! Kazuya screams, exploding Jake's heart with biokinesis. The ability does nothing. What? He whispers in disbelief. How are you still alive? Jake says nothing, quickly driving a fist deep into the devil's abdomen. Kazuya's eyes bulge and he doubles over in pain. The devil stumbles forward, holding his stomach. Jake strikes him across the face with a backhand, knocking Kazuya to the ground. While not necessarily stronger than before, Jake has managed to gain full control of his energy, and integrate Amarok's presence throughout. Rather than having to draw out the phase energy, Amarok's strength is now mixed with his own energy completely. With Vitier energy flowing through him, Jake's organs are offered more protection from the Devil's biokinesis than any minor magical spells. Fae have a natural resistance to magic and psychic controls. Even reborn within a human soul, the Vitier Amarok still manages to increase Jake's resistance to the Devil's tricks. "This doesn't make any sense," Kazda whispers, blood running down his face. "My powers clearly had an effect on you before. What has changed?" "I've been too busy worrying about being two souls sharing one body, that I've neglected learning how to harness the full potential within my own self. Even without Emiya, I still have everything I need to deal with you." Kazda advanced again, but slower now. His feet no longer dove straight forward. They probed, tested. Jake shifted with him, never crossing his feet, never giving the Devil a stationary target. Kazda feigned a jab. Jake didn't bite. The Devil stepped in behind it anyway. A cross shot toward Jake's temple. Jake slipped inside the punch. His shoulder collided with Kazda's chest. A short elbow clipped the Devil beneath the chin before Jake pivoted away. Kazda spun with him. A backhand swept across the space Jake had occupied a heartbeat earlier. But Jake had already circled outside. His shin cracked into Kazda's thigh. The impact twisted the Devil's stance just enough. A straight punch into his sternum. Kazda planted his rear foot and exploded forward, both hands, intending to simply overwhelm him. Jake retreated a single step. The Devil's momentum carried him farther than intended. Jake's foot hooked behind Kazda's ankle. His forearm pressed across the Devil's upper chest, and he gave a slight twist, and Kazda crashed forward onto one knee. Jake hammered an elbow between his shoulder blades. The Devil lurched upright with a roar and threw another psychic blast. The invisible force tore across the battlefield. Jake didn't try to resist it. He rolled with it. His feet left the ground, but he twisted through the air, landed on one hand, and converted the remaining force into another step backward instead of a tumble. Kazda was already closing the distance. A right hook that Jake slipped. He threw a left elbow, but Jake ducked. He brought up a knee. Jake turned his hips and checked it with his thigh. Their legs collided with a crack. Jake answered immediately with a calf kick, then another, then an oblique kick into the front of Kazda's knee. The Devil's leg buckled. Jake entered the opening. His palm struck beneath Kazda's jaw. An elbow followed, then a hook to the body and a liver shot. Kazda's abdomen tightened involuntarily. Jake reached for an arm. The Devil ripped it away before the lock could be secured and answered with a headbutt. Jake leaned back, the horns missed by inches. Kazda's shoulder slammed into his chest instead. Jake skidded across the broken earth. Before the Devil could capitalize, Jake planted a foot against a slab of stone and launched himself back in. The distance disappeared instantly. A jab snapped Kazda's head backward. A cross, an elbow, a knee. Kazda blocked the elbow but not the knee. Jake changed levels, his hands wrapped behind the Devil's lead leg. Kazda sprawled, but it was too late. Jake drove forward, and the Devil hit the ground. Jake didn't stay there. He knew better. He abandoned the takedown immediately, circling as Kazda released another burst of psychic force that pulverized the ground where Jake had been. Stone erupted into the air. Jake disappeared behind the cloud of debris. Kazda fired blindly through it. Chunks of rock exploded apart under invisible pressure. Nothing. Jake emerged from the side instead. His foot whipped across Kazda's ribs. The Devil twisted just enough to lessen the impact. Jake was already stepping away, never lingering, never giving Kazda the exchange he wanted. The Devil finally understood what made the human so difficult to pin down. Jake wasn't reacting to punches. He was reacting to transitions. The instant Kazda shifted his weight, Jake moved. The instant his hips turned, Jake adjusted his angle. By the time the attack became visible, Jake was already somewhere else.
Learn my own name.
Kazuda abruptly stopped chasing. His aura flared again. This time it didn't explode outward. It compressed. The air around him distorted. Loose stones lifted from the ground. Cracks spread beneath his feet. Jake narrowed his stance. He didn't rush in. No. This match. It is too important, Kazuda coughs. I cannot lose. I cannot lose to this human. He's trying to hype himself up, Zaya says. His confidence has been shattered. If Jake pulls off this upset, he will gain access to an unbelievably powerful moveset, Sinnoh says. With Kazuda's memories, he will instantly become privy to anything and everything the devils have been trying to keep quiet. Jake could single-handedly upheave thousands of years of evil plans in a matter of moments. That is if he actually chooses to do the right thing, Butler argues. You're assuming a lot. What has he done so far to show us that this is the path he'd go down? Finish it, Jake, Danny whispers. Put this devil down once and for all. Jake's aura continues to shine with a brilliant blue light, causing Kazuda to shield his eyes in discomfort. Yamorka, Dekarabia, I need your energy. He sends out a psychic plea to his allies. Your opponents are nothing. You can defeat them with ease. But I have been pushed to my very limits and beyond. I have nothing left. I cannot overcome him. I have wasted too much power. I have prolonged this battle too long. You were foolish and arrogant, Dekarabia growls. Why should we bail you out? I think you should have to face the consequences of your own hubris. You don't understand. He is far stronger than we were led to believe. The more I push, the more he pushed back. Somehow, he's been able to rise to meet me at each step I climb. If we do not put an end to him right here and right now, he will become an even greater problem in the future. Listen to you, Gamorka spits. Utterly disgraceful. Terrified of a mere mortal. A human child at that. He is not normal. This human has access to a well of energy that he should not. I beg you, he must be stopped now. If he kills me, he will become too strong for any of you to defeat. The others begin to laugh. Don't you worry about us. We will be just fine. Unlike you, I plan on releasing my full power the very moment I start, Dekarabia says. You fools, Kazuda growls. If you let me die, it will be the end of you as well. There is enough malice on this island, Gamorka says. Evil and bloodshed spilled upon every stone, soaked into every blade of grass. If you want to win so badly, use Kugaeki. If you're lucky, he will be slow to figure out your intentions and allow you enough time to gather it. I will not forget this slight, Kazuda growls with scorn, forcing me to use this. I will repay you both for refusing me aid. The devil closes his eyes and spreads his arms, palms turned upward. Every evil thought, every evil intention, give me strength. Island of Jockey, relinquish to me the grudges of the slain, their pain, their hatred, and their malice. What is he doing? Alcine asks. He looks like he's meditating. His energy is rising, Danny says. He's gaining more power somehow. Inyana can feel herself slowly becoming fatigued, as if from intense physical exertion. That snake is stealing our energy without permission. What an interesting power, Kazura says, also feeling the drain. But how much can he actually gather? There is no limit, Cedrion says. The gathering of Kugaiki is a harvesting of negative emotions, evil intent, malice, and hatred, burned into everything both living and not. Even the ground and the elements carry within them the memory of Kugaiki burned into them. Black smoke surrounds Kazuya, flowing into his body from all across the island. Each fighter feels the encroaching fatigue of their own darkness being tapped into. Two physically manifested black wings burst from the devil's back, with dozens of eyes opening up across them one after another. Kazuya begins to laugh, his body overflowing with negative energy. He flies up into the air, two more wings unfolding from his back at a downward angle. Jake feels a tug at his body from all sides. It is a strange pressure that is both simultaneously draining and relieving. As negative emotion is pulled in from all over the island, the teen is no exception. The more the Kugaiki feeds on Jake's fear, hate, jealousy, pain, and bloodlust, the more his connection to Amarok's power grows. Jake's hands suddenly erupt with a flame-like energy. Kazuya laughs maniacally, more eyes opening up across his body and wings. A fiery halo and ethereally of spiraling horns materialize upon the devil's crown. You have squandered what little chance you had at defeating me by allowing me to channel this power. Your pride and stupidity is astounding, human. To be so confident in so little. You truly thought you could defeat a divine being. I don't think I can, Jake says, his face set in seriousness. I know I can. Black energy erupts all around Kazuya in an inferno. Cocky to the very end. If that is the way you wish to die, I will grant you this one final gift. Yamura, Amarok says. Step away from the spell circle. What? Yamura slowly awakens, his voice strained from heavy exertion and fatigue. Now you want him to go out of control again? I thought we agreed that this was the best way forward. He won't lose control, the Vitir spirit replies. This is the perfect opportunity to allow the overflow someplace to go safely. Safely? Ymir is shocked and horrified at the idea. That energy will go straight to Kazuya and make him stronger. Amarok nods. I finally understand Jake's strategy, and I think we can help him accelerate it. By giving that devil more power? Yes. You don't have to trust me, but do you trust him? Kazuya is hit by a powerful surge of negative emotions. His skin and muscles stretch and tear as his body mutates into a form no longer resembling anything human. Larger, grotesque eyes open up across the devil's flesh, shining slick with blood and exposed tissue. This power, his voice booms. It is beyond anything I could ever imagine. I am no longer a divine vassal. I encroach the very hallowed territory of the gods themselves. Jake's entire body is encircled by the fiery blue energy. Even the teen's eyes burn with its radiance. Keep gorging on that power, you greedy bastard. I'm going to make you choke on it. Slowly, the fire-like energy loses its color, becoming closer to a pure white light. Cedrion's eyes widen in surprise, suddenly sensing a presence he never expected to encounter during this competition. It is a power much closer to a being such as himself, or the slain Cambion, than anything emitted previously by any of the other mortals. "Possible," he whispers. "It is far too early for him to have awakened that strength. It must be an echo, some kind of phantom glimpse. There's no way he has actually tapped into his ancestral power." "And now," Kazda grins, holding a hand out towards Jake, "no amount of switching spirits will save you. At this level, my biokinesis will not simply stop your heart or your breathing, but erupt every single cell in your body. There is no way for you to survive this." Sending out waves of psychic energy into Jake, the teen trembles but somehow resists. "Impossible!" Kazda screams, waves of black energy steadily rising from his body. "You are just a human. All humans are too weak to stand up to the divine." He holds out his other hand, forcing Jake to one knee. The teen struggles to fight against the devil's control, but in his released state, he is far more powerful than before. "See, you are not immune. Before was but a fluke. You are nothing more than flesh and bone in despair." Jake's downed leg combusts with a brilliant white flame, and he is able to stand back up. The flames travel up the teen's body until his entire right side is flickering with white fire like light. "What is this?" he whispers in confusion. Once again, his biokinesis is ineffective. "If I cannot kill you with biokinesis, then I will steal those flames and use them to burn you to ash." Kazda screams. Using pyrokinesis, he draws the white flames to himself. The devil laughs triumphantly as the flames wrap around his arm. "You are a unique mortal, but you are still just a mortal. This competition was never meant for someone like you to succeed in." "I'm pretty sure this tournament was made specifically for me," Jake argues. "You're the one who's an afterthought." The devil winces in pain, the flames he absorbed from Jake now burning his flesh. He is not only unable to fully control them, they act as almost allergic presence to him. Kazda teleports behind Jake with Black Shinkanito and attempts to slam the flames into his back. The flames absorb back into Jake's aura, leaving him unharmed. The teen pivots, elbowing the devil across the face. As Kazda stumbles, Jake follows up with a knee to the ribs and a hard left hook. Kazda is driven to his hands and knees. Strings of blood hang from his lips. "This is not possible," Kazda coughs. This isn't possible!" He screams, his black energy wings expanding and lifting him back to his feet. He shouts out in hatred, black tendrils shaped into spears extending from his aura and thrusting towards Jake repeatedly, faster than anyone should be able to move. The powers of a devil are not natural. Cloaked in the glow of his partially awakened spiritual aura, integrated with Amarok's Fate presence, Jake is able to evade each of the strikes and retaliate with pulses of light-like blasts of energy. Each blast weakens Kazda's darkness on contact, hurting the spirit of the devil inside and not the mortal shell. Kazda loses more and more control to his anger. "No!" Kazda screams. "No human can stand up to the might of a devil knave!" The two engage in a furious display of hand-to-hand combat, darting all across the beach. Explosions erupt from the exertion of their immense power. Jake's fists crash against Kazda, each one infused with his own strength. the power of Amarok, and a strength from beyond either of them, an ancestral strength tapped into through desperation and temporary clarity brought about through the devil absorbing all of Jake's negativity. Kazeda manages to keep the battle even, striking the teen with fists cloaked in black energy. Kazeda grabs Jake by an ankle and pulls him into a hard clothesline. As Jake is rocked by the blow, Kazeda follows through by teleporting behind him with Black Shinkonito and sending his darkness out in the form of spears. The form of a blue wolf appears from behind Jake from his aura and bites through Kazeda's attack. Angered, the devil initiates their battle to continue and they both return to trading punches. "Can you follow them?" Butler asks. Sinnoh slowly nods. Kinda. His eyes have become reptilian slits as he uses the GX parasite to improve his awareness. But it's difficult for even my parasite to keep up. The island buzzed with an electric tension, punctuated by murmurs and whispers that echoed off the ancient stone walls of famed monuments and shrines. Zaya and Danny stood side by side, their eyes fixed on Jake with a mixture of awe and concern. The transformation in him was undeniable. A flickering aura enveloped his form, shimmering with an otherworldly glow that seemed to defy the laws of nature. Zaya's voice, barely above a whisper, carried disbelief tinged with a hint of fear. "Unbelievable," she breathed. Her usually composed demeanor was shaken by the spectacle before her. "Is this really the same guy we fought in the hospital?" Danny's response was measured, her gaze unwavering as she assessed the situation with a warrior's scrutiny. "He's grown," she acknowledged quietly, her words laced with respect for Jake's newfound power. "Let's just hope that he's also improved enough to keep up. I don't plan on handing this tournament to Jake without a fight." Around them, the audience watched with rapt attention, sensing the gravity of the moment. Inyana and her cohorts, positioned at the edge of the cliffside, observed with calculating eyes. "Are you worried?" Inyana asks Hui with a sly grin, trying to taunt the Grand General.
"Worried?" Hui growls. "Why would I be worried about him? Yamura and his vessel are gnats compared to us."
"To me," Inyana corrects. "But to you, he seems far more comparable." Hui shakes with anger, clenching his fists tightly.
"I refuse to believe that. It has only been 2 weeks since we battled. He could not have surpassed me in such a short amount of time."
"Didn't he beat you up then as well?" Kazura asks.
"I was not used to being confined with a human vessel at the time," Hui growls. "I am far more accustomed to this body now."
"And he seems to have gotten more familiar with his body and powers as well," Kazura says. "He has gotten in touch with a unique inner power that allows him to go toe-to-toe with divine beings and render him immune to some of the devil's psychic abilities. Those are some pretty significant power-ups."
"I will show you," Hui growls. "He has not gained nearly enough strength to surpass me."
"I recommend you win all of your matches by fatality, Grand General," Inyana says. "I believe you are going to need all the strength you can amass."
"All of you should be concerned," Cedrion speaks up, startling the others. "For the power that boy is tapped into is the power of his ancestors. I trust you recall that strength. It is the same spirit wielded by the hero Enkidu."
"Enkidu?" Inyana whispers. That isn't possible."
Cedrion nods. "I do not suspect the boy has the ability to continue using this power. But I also did not expect him to manifest it at all. At least not this early in the tournament. All any of us can do now is watch and see how the battle unfolds."
"He has exceeded my expectations in spectacular fashion. I just wonder, how long can he keep this up?" Kazeda grabs Jake by an arm and swings him high up into the air. The devil darts above him, bringing both fists crashing against his spine.
Jake plummets to the ground but manages to break his fall at the last second with a projection of Amarok. The spirit wolf emits a loud howl, its sound waves cushioning Jake's fall. "What are the strange powers you wield against me?" Kazda growls. "No mortal should have any resistance to my abilities." "Typical of a Yazata. You think you're the only divine game in town," Jake taunts. "You're too prideful to acknowledge beings of equal strength and esteem outside your own race." "There are no such beings!" Kazda shouts. "The Creator made only lower life forms after us. None held a higher station than the Yazata." "Even if that were true, you aren't a Yazata. Not anymore." Kazda growls in anger. He hates to be reminded of the shame of being stripped of his status and cursed to become a monstrosity for his rebellion. "A Devilney is still superior to humanity in every way." He extends his black energy wings. The energy horns on his head sparkle with black electricity. Kazda rushes, knocking Jake back with a surge of energy from his aura. The teen lunges forward, grabbing the devil's horns and pulling his head down into repeated knee strikes. Jake kicks Kazda up into the air before swatting him back down with a hard right. The devil bounces off the ground but immediately manages to recover with a kick to the teen's chest. Kazda conjures flame to begin slinging fireballs at Jake. The teen evades as best he can, but the devil manages to reach him and connect with a hard right of his own. Growling, almost feral, Kazda holds an arm out towards Jake that suddenly expands into an energy blade, several yards in length. Jake sidesteps the attack and blocks with a shield of condensed energy. Sparks leap from Jake's shield as the black blade streaks past. Kazda shrieks in frustration, whipping his blade to the side and colliding with Jake. The teen's energy shield cracks but continues to hold as he is pushed out towards the ocean. As the shield finally shatters, Jake drops beneath the blade and allows it to pass overhead. Emerging from the water, Jake fires several pulses of energy at Kazda, but the attacks explode before making contact with the devil. Jake leaps from the water just before Kazda swings his sword around again, this time landing on the blade and sprinting down its length to catch the surprised devil with a kick to the face. Jake manifests a sword from his own aura and leaps down, severing Kazda's blade arm at the elbow. Blood does not appear from the wound, only darkness. Jake pivots, slashing his sword upward and diagonally across Kazda's chest. The devil stares wide-eyed, black fluid erupting from the wound. Kazda's Devilney energy escapes the body of his host rapidly, causing both his horns and wings to vanish. "This can't be happening," Kazda coughs, more black fluid drooling from his lips. He is no longer able to hold his spirit bound to the dying human flesh. "Walachu's death was supposed to be a fluke. Humans can't kill us. They just can't." "It just happened, pal," Jake says. "You need to accept it. Then maybe your last few seconds on Earth can be in peace." "Peace?" Kazda screams. "This world is rightfully ours. You humans were gifted everything. We did all the work for you to just reap all the benefits and then spit on all of the world's wonders. We taught you primitive apes everything, but you have no respect. You don't deserve this world. The Earth should have been given to us. God should never have entrusted such a vibrant world to lowly creatures like you. Only we were deserving of such a gift. We were his first sentient creations. Why were we not given this world before you?" "You may have power and intelligence, but you have no empathy," Jake says. "There's no way you could have kept civilization moving forward when all you have for beings like us is contempt and hatred." Kazda's remaining skin begins to sag from the bones, seeming to melt away. we would never have bothered with keeping humanity flourishing. That was the Creator's project, not ours. We would have done what needed to be done as always. We were only prevented from exterminating the last of your kind by that cur Mikhail. God wanted you to teach us and make us a better species, and you wanted to wipe us out, Jake whispers. And you still wonder why you weren't given a larger sandbox to play in. You'd break all the toys. It is the only logical conclusion, Kazda growls. Humanity's removal is the only way to ensure the Earth's survival. You don't care about this world, Jake says. You only wish to become gods in your own right. That's why you were passed over by the Creator. Given a little bit of free will, you became just like the Aesir. He knew you weren't fit to be in charge of anything. You humans, kill each other. Kazda continues to weaken. Each word is slower to come and more painful to speak than the last. You destroy nature for the sake of progress. You engage in wars over abstract ideas and invisible territorial lines. Some have more than enough resources to share with the rest of the world, yet they hoard their riches while so many others die in squalor and starvation. The horrors you commit against each other are more terrible than anything capable of any other life forms on this planet. You view the Yazata and devils with rose-colored glasses. But you're such a liar, Jake says with pity and disgust. Your hatred for us is so great that you pick out the worst of us and completely ignore all the countless atrocities committed by your own kind. Everything you accuse us of, you've done yourselves. You devils torture and kill us. You engage in all kinds of depravity on our innocence. None of you are innocents. Kazda coughs. You were created in error, with corruption in your souls. He has reached his limit of holding on. The devil's vessel has expired and the lifeless corpse has begun to reject his foreign soul. The battlefield fell into a tense silence as Kazda, desperate and wounded, crawled forward with a feral determination. His eyes darted around frantically, seeking a new vessel to possess, to continue his malevolent existence. In the chaotic thrum of the moment, he fixated on Danny, sensing the latent darkness within her. A darkness he believed he could manipulate and wield to his advantage. Before Kazda could enact his plan, Jake surged forward with a ferocity that belied his youth. In a swift and decisive motion, Kazda was seized by his hair, and Jake wrenched him back with a visceral snarl of defiance. No jumping ship! Jake growled through his gritted teeth, his voice a low, menacing rumble that echoed through the area. With a chilling resolve, he plunged his hand into Kazda's back, the force of his will driving through the devil's incorporeal form. Kazda shrieked in agonizing torment as Jake's hand burst through his chest, dark fluid splattering in a grotesque cascade. Jake withdrew his arm with a visceral grimace, casting Kazda aside like a discarded puppet, the devil's form twitching and convulsing in its death throes. Kazda, weakened and desperate, attempted to release his spirit with a shaky gasp. His mouth opened in a silent scream, the ethereal essence of his being struggling against the deterioration of his dead host. In a final, brutal act, Jake crushed Kazda's skull beneath his foot. The sickening crunch reverberated through the area, a grim punctuation to the harrowing struggle that had unfolded. Silence descended once more, broken only by the ragged breaths of those who bore witness to the scene. Kazda's voice booms overhead loudly. Why are you so excited? You have done nothing but destroy a worthless shell. What? He should have been sent back to hell, Jake says, frustrated.
This island is spectacular, Cazdil laughs. Jockey is immune to the laws that govern the rest of this world. Here, we have all the power. This place shall become my high seat of power once I claim the Banu Kazka.
The swarm of Kazdil's essence circles above the island like a buzzing storm cloud. What now? Jake whispers to himself. Is there any way to stop him in that form? Kazdil studies each of the other beings on the island.
All I need is to choose a new body and finish you off.
Guard yourselves, Alyssa says. He will pick another body to possess shortly.
What?
Klebarg asks, turning to look at the mysterious swordswoman.
He going to try to take our bodies? I ain't into that. I ain't letting no man take my body.
Suddenly, the swarm slams into Danny, forcing its mass down her throat. Gagging, Danny claws at her throat and coughs violently. Eyes tearing up, she sticks her fingers down her gullet and tries to force herself to vomit. This is bad, Danny whispers, her eyes clouding over with darkness. What do I do? Alyssa draws her sword. You have to die before that creature gains full access to your body. Hold on, Danny pleads, hands out. Let's not be that extreme. The same evil in your heart that allowed you mages to kill my Bernat has made you susceptible to the devil's possession. You must die, Alyssa says. Kazdil begins to laugh, taking control of Danny's left arm and hand. What amazing power, he says in awe. You have some incredible magical potential. Cursing, Alyssa raises her sword. We have to do this quickly. She is blocked by Danny's mage companions. Get out of my way. Stay away from her, Zaya growls, holding her own sword out at Alyssa. You stupid fools, Alyssa says. Would you rather your friend's soul be devoured by the devil and her body used to kill all of you? We will handle this our way, Zaya threatens. What happens to Danny is none of your concern. None of my concern? Alyssa shouts. If that devil gains control of a new body, he will use it to attack all of us. This is our only chance to be rid of him. She moves to Danny, but it's taken too long to act, and the devil is fully aware of her intentions. Go away, Kazdil says, using psychokinesis to slap Alyssa aside. Butler picks up a metal claymore from the ground. I'm sorry, Danny, he whispers. That woman is right. We have to stop the devil before it gains more power within your body. Danny feels a sharp jolt of disorientation, as if a maelstrom of conflicting emotions and fragmented memories threatens to overwhelm her senses. A shimmer courses down her spine, a harbinger of the insidious presence that begins to take root within the depths of her consciousness. At first, it is a subtle whisper in the recesses of her mind, a faint echo of the malevolent intent that claws at the edges of her thoughts. Danny's muscles twitch involuntarily as if responding to an unseen puppet strings of an entity that seeks to manipulate her very being. As the devil's essence takes hold, Danny's vision blurs and her surroundings seem to twist and warp, as if reality itself is being contorted by the malefic force that now resides within her. A sense of profound dread settles like a heavy weight upon her chest, as the essence begins to weave itself into the very fabric of her soul, intertwining her essence with its own in an unholy union of darkness and light.
Nothing left for me to feel. I hear their voices in the dark. Every ghost has left its mark. Tell me, how do I forgive a world that taught me how to cry? found his name carved in the basement wall. Beneath the paint, beneath it all, Mama said, don't go down there, don't go down there, don't go down there. But she never said why. I remember broken dishes, I remember sleepless nights, I remember something breathing just beyond the hallway light. Was it him, or was it me? I was too young to know the difference. Each side had said alright, like a warning, like a promise. I swore I'd never be him. Now I don't know if I already am. I hear him when the house goes quiet, I feel him when I lose control. I never saw his face, but I know he knows mine. The devil I inherited lies somewhere underneath my skin. I don't know if he's a memory or if he ever really lived. He speaks with my voice, it bleeds through my hands. I swear I'm fighting something I just don't know if it's him or who I am. Some nights I smell smoke in my bedroom, some nights I taste it in my mouth. Sometimes I wake up shaking, sometimes I don't remember falling apart. They tell me how he's separates, how you have his eyes. They tell me how you're becoming him, but nobody tells me what to do. Get it right. Lock the doors, I hide the bottles, I bury every ugly thought, but it keeps finding me, or maybe I keep finding him. The devil I inherited lies somewhere underneath my skin. I don't know if he's a sickness or if I ever let him in. He speaks with my voice, he laughs through my fight. I swear I'm fighting something I just don't know if it's him or if it's me. Was he real? The shadow in the doorway, the whisper in the vents, the rage that split the room apart. Was he real? Or did we call our pain a monster? Because monsters are easier to hate than family. I don't know. I don't know. I scrub my hands. The stains come back. I break the mirrors. I see him anyway. I scream into the pain and the sorrow senses I've been on all along. The devil I inherited might be a ghost, might be a curse, might be a needle, might be a fist, might be a voice, passed father to son, generation after generation, until somebody finally says, I don't know what lives inside me. I don't know what wears my face. But if I have to drag this thing to hell to learn my own name, then hell's where I'll go. The tape recorder clicks. A man's voice barely audible. It runs in the family.